Tonight on Diabetes Chat, we welcome Beth and Amanda from DSN Forum, both amazing DSNs supporting the type 1 diabetes community. And tonight we're going to be talking to Beth and Amanda about going away on holidays and traveling, and they're going to share their top tips with us.
I'm
Yes.
Amanda Williams / Epps, also known as, and I am the lead diabetes nurse at East Kent Hospitals. And so I work mainly with inpatients, people with insulin pumps, antenatal, that sort of thing. Whereas Beth is a community diabetes nurse, so she sees people in the community. Again, she still does antenatal and pumps.
I am here now.
Like, looks after people in care homes, well, the nurses and things. So yeah, we've both got the same job but different. So we have lots of unique experiences, I suppose. We complement each other. So if she doesn't know it, I do, and if I don't know it, she might. So diabetes messes up everything. Traveling messes up everything. So we need to make sure that we know sort of time zones and what kind of activity we're going to be doing, what types of food we might be eating. So all these things probably need to start thinking about. But then it all goes out the window anyway, because we're on holiday. In an ideal world, yeah, you would do all that planning. Different things can affect your glucose levels, like the climate, for instance. So hot weather, some people will have hypos in hot weather, but then other people find they go high in hot weather, and sometimes that can be issues like insulin getting a bit warm, air bubbles in insulin pumps, things like that. But with hypos, the insulin's getting around your body quicker because everything's vasodilated, all your vessels are nice and big because you're hot, so insulin gets around the body quicker, and sometimes that can cause hypos where it's using it too quickly. Obviously, access to medicines and healthcare may vary. My son is going to America in October on a school trip, and I am petrified because I'm thinking insulin is like mega expensive, and yeah, so knowing what's available and having good health insurance, travel insurance, making sure you've got good cover, and for the correct country, because some travel insurance doesn't cover certain countries. So like when I went to Sierra Leone, I had to get special travel insurance. Not that I probably would have wanted to go in the hospital there, but yeah, lots of different travel companies do different insurance, so you need to make sure you've got that. Insulin and devices, you might need to protect them from the heat. So we tend to use Frio packs when I travel, so they keep insulin at about room temperature. I wouldn't say they keep it cool, but they stop it getting hot.
Okay, so traveling locally. So this was just to remind people that whether you're going abroad or you're staying in the UK, to just remember that the same things need to apply, because we have a lot of DSNs that work in, popular tourist destinations, so Cornwall, nice coastal towns, things that people go on holiday to. And they always put a bit of a plea out to nurses, which you might have seen the amazing nurse consultant Amanda from Cornwall said last night on the thread. Even if you are going to Cornwall for a weekend, always just make sure that you also pack the same amount of insulin and the same amount of cannulas and things that you'll need, because we are, they're obviously working really hard with their own patients, and they don't have capacity and just all that extra stock to give people that are there visiting on holiday. So it's just a bit of a plea to just treat holidays in the UK the same as you would abroad. So make sure you pack all the things you need.
Yeah, we've seen it come up a lot, haven't we? In the forum, we have conversations with every summer. Somebody from down that way will say, we'll put a plea out. Can you tell all your patients, please, do not go on holiday without anything, without their supplies, because we are running out of stuff. So
yeah, and it's not as easy. I think we have some stuff in our cupboards sometimes, but if someone turns up on our doorstep and asks for so many cannulas for whatever pump, we don't always have the stock, and it does take us sometimes just as long as it takes you guys to get hold of things. We can't just put an order in and get it the next day either. So just a bit of a plea to remember that, really.
Yeah, and always take your backup pens that way. If it all goes
Yeah,
pear shaped, you've got that to rely on.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, hopefully everyone knows this. They're going on holiday, so just remember to keep your checklist. Make sure you've got all your medication. Bring double the amount of things you need, all your sensors, your strips, and things like that. Make sure that you split your supplies between all your different luggages. And sometimes, if you've got friends going with you, it's a good idea to pop some in there as well, just in case. We've all been there, haven't we, when something's got lost? So just in case your case is the one that goes missing, your friends have something, or your family or whatever, or you have something that you can use. Make sure you check your prescription labels and things like that, and declare them at customs if you need to when you're going through. Keep emergency glucagon and any hypo treatment sick day supplies that you think you'll need on your person with you, and think about taking power banks, spare batteries, cables for devices and things like that in your luggage as well.
Yeah, that's how I survived in Sierra Leone with power banks.
Yeah, we had to get you a few, didn't we?
Well, the electric just kept going out. There was no electric at all, like during the day, and they rely on solar power and stuff, and it just was just not working at all. And in the evening, they might get a few hours, and then the iPhone wouldn't charge because it was too hot, and so the only time to charge it was when you managed to cool it down and then use a power bank, because the electric gone off again by then. It was just a nightmare. So power banks are absolute lifesavers.
Yeah, and decent ones as well.
Yeah, with more than one charge per
bank. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I was talking about this earlier. This is kind of the Frio pack. So you can see on the slide there that like flowery thing that has got like little crystals inside it. So what you do is you put that pouch into a bowl of water, and you leave it for about half an hour, and it all swells up. So it's like it retains the water, and then it goes inside the green pouch. But as the water evaporates, it keeps the pens cool, and I wouldn't say ice cold, it's just it keeps it more cool than it would be if it wasn't in there. So it's like in hot weather in Sierra Leone, for instance. I kept my insulin in the cool bag, and it didn't get hot, whereas the room was hot, boiling hot. So it did keep it a kind of more room temperature. I wouldn't say it was cold, but it was more like a room temperature. So I would still say if you've kept things in the Frio pack, it's not like keeping it in a fridge. So I would still go by that 28-day rule of throwing it out after 28 days, because I think it probably still will have degraded.
Because I was going to say the technical thing is it will keep it to 1 or 2 degrees above the dew point, if you really want to know how it works.
Oh, really? Oh,
so
okay.
If it's very humid, it won't get that cold.
No.
But the other thing I've learned is I keep my pens in there, and my Novo pen failed because I got condensation in the pen. So you need to make sure the sensor end, the sensor end of the pen sticks out.
Yeah.
Keep the insulin in, but not the sensor end of the pen.
Yeah.
That's
See, I just had
from me.
vials and I had cartridges that weren't actually in the pen, so I just had vials and cartridges in there. So that was
fine.
I
don't use very much insulin, so one normal Novo cartridge lasts me 3 weeks. So I keep my pen in there, always in a Frio bag. But I've learned, having failed a Novo pen, that it's a good idea to not put the dial end down inside of the pack.
That makes sense. And then we've got staying out of direct sunlight, so that the heat coming through the window can be immense, and so making sure that pens are nowhere near sort of window sills where they might just boil. And the same in cars. If you think about when you've got a can of Coke or something in a car and you leave it in there in the sun, and then you go back later and how warm it is, that's what's going to happen to your insulin if you leave it in the car. So definitely don't leave anything in glove boxes. Same with jelly babies as well. I find they melt and become one big jelly goo.
Just keep them in your Frio bag.
Yeah. And sometimes the pumps and sensors can fail in extreme temperatures. So we've seen the cold can affect sensors. It might say it's too cold to read, or and heat people tend to get quite sweaty, and sometimes they fall off, don't they?
Yeah.
So extreme temperatures can mess up your sensors and pumps and things. With pumps, I think sometimes the heat, like I was saying before Beth was able to get back on, sometimes it can cause bubbles in the reservoirs, and people will seem to get more high readings sometimes with the heat when it's got bubbles in it. And then, but also the heat can cause hypos because people are, well, and even on holiday you get hypos because you're walking around more, you're eating different food, the heat. There's multiple different reasons. So, but yeah, temperature in storage is definitely tricky. So plan ahead, get yourself a Frio pack. I'm sure there are other brands. It's the only one I know is Frio.
Yeah, it's the one we always tell people, isn't it?
I had a lady that came into hospital in DKA, and that's because she left her insulin in a caravan, and it was boiling. It was like 45 degrees inside that caravan, and like chocolate had melted on the side. That's how hot it was. And her insulin had been in there, but she continued to use it. And it was only when she was in DK and I was chatting to her and I was like, so you've taken all your insulin? She's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, right, needles, injection technique. Okay, so where do you store your insulin? And then we were chatting and she's like, oh, well, I've been on holiday and I'm in a caravan. And I'm like, oh, where's the insulin? In the caravan all day long. Oh, that'll be why then. So yeah, and it goes a funny color as well a little bit, like when it's got overheated, sometimes it can go a bit like yellowy. Yeah. So you might know if you've done it.
I know this seems a silly question, or hopefully there's no silly question. So if someone had their insulin in hot weather, in a car, in a caravan, etc., in the UK or abroad or whatever, and can they then use it once it's cooled down if they put it in the fridge, or would it advise that's it, just get rid of it now?
No, it's like insulin dies in hot cars.
Yeah.
Just like dogs.
Yeah, just throw it away, start another one.
It degrades the thing, and I think the same happens if it freezes. Although that Roddy Riddle was telling us on his like trips across the I don't know,
Alps or something.
that his insulin had frozen, he still used it and it was okay, but we said not to
be advised. Yeah, so navigating airports. So obviously we're hoping that you guys have all heard of the medical device awareness card that you can download, which is totally free to download. And if you type it in medical device awareness card, you can download that as a PDF and you can print it off and just keep it in your passport or wherever you need it. But it just talks about traveling safely through airport security and things with your pumps and any CGM devices. Sometimes they can trigger alarms and you shouldn't always go through the scanning. We have got a slide on here showing you which ones can go through what. But you shouldn't go through the full body scanners, and you are within your right to kind of request a pat down instead. But just let security know early and be calm and just say, you've got diabetes and you can't go through that thing, and they should, as you said, just check through stuff. And you should always carry your diabetes kit and your hand luggage with you. You can also carry a letter from your diabetes team. So GP surgeries will charge for these letters, but you can ask your DSN. I'll always do it for free. So I'm sure if you give them enough notice, and so we're talking, months, if you know you're traveling, or even, just get one when you have your review and then just keep it tucked in your passport so you've always got it. Don't have to have a up to date one every time you go, but just have one that says you'll be traveling with needles or whatever. And the DSNs usually do that for you, but please don't all write to your DSN tonight and request one for tomorrow, because that's unlikely to not happen. You got anything to add to that one, Amanda?
Yeah, I was just going to say the NHS app is good because it's got your prescription on it.
Yeah,
so
that's also
if you've forgotten everything and you don't have a letter, if you've got the NHS app, it's got your name on it, it's got your prescription on it, and you can prove that this is my prescription that I need to take with me. So the good thing that's happened now is they're not making you take the liquids out of the bag. So one time, I think it was like our first holiday with my son, and he had all, I was freaking out because we were going through security, and I was getting the liquids out of the bag. They like rush everyone through, and I'm like, no, that's not allowed to go through. No, he's not allowed to go through. No, stop it. It was all just chaos. And then I dropped the whole bag of insulin vials on the floor, and I was freaking out because I thought I'd smashed them all just before we'd gone on holiday. Yeah, but I hadn't. They were fine. Luckily, they were fine. But now you don't have to take the liquid out, so you can go through, and the liquid stays in the airports in the UK anyway. So as long as you're going somewhere that is also doesn't need it, then yeah, you don't have to take it out. So that was really handy at Gatwick and Heathrow that I've been to recently. The other thing is they've changed the scanners, and they try to talk you into saying, yes, you can have it. It's really safe. Every medical device goes through it. We put pacemakers through it, and I'm like, no. I said, the manufacturer's warranty says no. And do you disagreeing with the manufacturer's warranty? These are the conversations I have at the gate, and they're like, oh, okay, no, if you really don't want to, then we won't make you. So they won't make you. And if in doubt, bring up the manufacturer warranty. You can Google them and get. I managed to get the T-Slim one there, and then on one of my trips, and showed them, look, it says do not do it, and they're like, yeah, you can. But I was like, I said, well, if it breaks, this is like £3,000, so you're happy to replace it if it breaks when I go through. They still won't, they won't do it. So what they tend to do is pat you down and then swab the pump and your hands for explosives is what they're looking for. So as long as you don't have any explosives on you, you'll be fine. So the slide we've got up at the moment is from a lovely lady called Kyla Howard, I think. She's a young person's diabetes nurse, and she has done this, and we think it's up to date. I think she sent us a most recent version in July 24. So if there is anything wrong on here, let us know and we'll get her to update it. But this is telling you what the manufacturer's warranty says about whether you can have your hand luggage x-rayed, or whether you can go through a metal detector or full body scanner. So most things are safe in the metal detector. There are a few things that are okay in the hand luggage, and the full body scanner is pretty much most things are out. Pods are okay by the look of it. They seem like they're okay for everything. That's good. So if you've got a pod, then you're fine. But if you've got a Dexcom with it, you're stuffed. Or the lever. No, there you go. So it doesn't really work, does it? If you've got an Omnipod 5 and a Dexcom or a Libra, or unless you've got a G7, so you could have an Omnipod 5 with a G7 if you're one of those lucky ones. Then you could walk through without any problems. So that's the way to go. Or a Medtron.
Time zone. So this is always a question that we get asked about changing insulin across time zones and things like that. I would say it's less of a problem now. We've got, like, most people are taking things like Tresiba and Toujeo, which can be taken any time of the day as long as they're taken kind of at, once a day. I don't know about you, Amanda. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of patients are on pumps now, so it's about just changing the time on the clock when you get there, so that you're on the right time. But basals is a tricky one. If you're on pens, you've got to try, and especially if it's hours and hours ahead, you've got to keep moving it a few hours each day. But the problem you've got with that is, but I mean, if it's once a day, it's once a day. I think I would just keep it at the same time that you take it, especially if you're not going for too long. So say you take your Lantus or something at 10 o'clock at night, I would probably still take it at 10 o'clock at night, whatever time it is, like 10 o'clock UK time.
And just get into it.
Yeah, I just keep it going, because if it's a 24-hour insulin, there's no point in messing it all around just for, like, if you're only going for like a week or two. If you were going for like 6 months, then gradually move it day by day by day until you've got it at the right time. But yeah, if you're just there for a short period of time, it'd just be more hassle than it's worth trying to move it.
Absolutely.
Because what you don't want is a long period of time without basal, because the risk is you go into DK. And we've seen that happen, where people have just like moved their basal 12 hours or something, and that means they've gone without it for 12 hours and they end up in DK. So just have to be really careful. And rapid acting obviously is meal time, so you just adjust it to the meals that you're having. But with the pumps, you're just changing the times when you get there so that everything goes round back to where it should be. And then change the time when you come back. That's the important thing.
Yeah, no one remembers that bit when they go.
No.
But yeah, it's not too scary. And like I said, I think this will probably fade out once more and more people are on pumps, and now we've got the longer acting insulins and stuff. It's not really going to be a thing in the next few years. But yeah, that's generally what we do. It causes a lot of hassle. I think people get a bit confused about that, but it's actually not that bad.
So this is a really good question, because I think people were getting a bit blasé about disconnecting pumps on flights, and then I think somebody's had a big hypo, and wasn't there an MSN sent out about it?
There was.
Was it Medtronic?
I can't remember which one it was now. Yeah, I think you're right, actually.
Yeah. So you are supposed to disconnect the pump, not the Omnipod, because obviously you can't disconnect that, but the tubed pumps, you're supposed to disconnect them in takeoff and landing, because of the force could potentially cause a drop of insulin to go in. Me and my son did an experiment and disconnected the pump to see if anything did come out of the pump on takeoff and landing, and not a single drop came out. So, but different pumps have got different mechanisms, and it's also the pressure, isn't it? If you think about the pressure, air pressure, we think what happens to a bottle,
and it is.
Yeah, and so like the T-Slim, I would have thought the T-Slim would have like had a problem, because it's a little bag inside it, isn't it? And you think air pressure, but I suppose you take the air out of it, so I suppose it's not such a problem. But they've obviously must have tested it, okay, because nothing came out on our little test.
Good. On your N=2 experiment. But no, I've always, whenever we've flown away, you've always disconnected it when we've taken off and landed.
It's hard, especially if you're wearing a dress and you've got a seatbelt on and you're like trying to disconnect this pump from under your dress, and then trying to reconnect it without showing everyone your knickers. It's quite tricky sometimes. But that is the suggested. And reconnect once you're in the air and everything's stabilized, and make sure you've got hypo treatment with you. So that's the other thing, isn't it? When you're sitting with your seatbelt on and you've put your bag under your seat, or you've put your bag up in the overhead locker, you then have a hypo and you can't get to your hypo treatment. So I always make sure I've got hypo treatment in my pocket, which is annoying because you have to take it out of your pocket when you go through security, and then remember to put it back in your pocket when you get through the other end. It's a bloody nightmare, isn't it? You don't realise all these extra things you're thinking about, which everybody else is thinking about their pint of beer in the Wetherspoons.
And a nice cocktail.
We found,
and I'm wondering, where's my hypo treatment? Is it in my pocket?
We found recently when we went to Belfast, I've never known this before, that if you ring the airlines and explain that you got a medical condition, so obviously type 1 in this case, I guess it depends on different airlines, but was it EasyJet, Claire? I think it's EasyJet or Ryanair. Basically, we rang them. They then accommodated us to have basically, like a rucksack or whatever by your feet. So then essentially, Claire had like her sort of like handbag or whatever, so she could have that. I could have my rucksack. So they accommodated extra bag, which is quite good.
I think that is quite common. You get a whole extra bag for medical stuff, don't you? But it's only allowed to have medical stuff in it. Yeah,
because Tamsin was like, she tried to bring extra pants and stuff in it, and it was like, no, this is a medical bag, that's it. So it's like 23 kilograms is the maximum that you can have, but obviously if it ends up being that big, you'll have to put it in
full of duty-free rum. You're in trouble.
It's funny though, because I definitely use my bag for other things, and and they weren't even bothered. But it'd be sod's law the next time you do that. Then they'd be like,
Yeah.
no, sorry, this bag should just literally be
You know
diabetes.
it's going to be those airlines that want to charge you for every single tiny thing, like the Ryanair type airlines. So I think you best be safe than sorry, and only put medical stuff in your medical bag. And then you're allowed a carry-on bag as well, backpack or handbag or something. I mean, I never bother with an extra medical bag, but my carry-on bag is usually all full of stuff, medical supplies mainly, and nothing else. So if I get to another country, I've never got anything else other than medicines with me. So you're supposed to use your backpack to pack an extra pair of clothes or whatever in case you lose your suitcase, but mine never has that.
Okay, so food, activity and blood glucose. So yeah, as I kind of talked about at the start, so usually when we're going on holiday, we're doing a lot more tourism things, we're doing a lot more walking, sometimes we're doing more activity that we wouldn't do when we're at home. So we might go skiing or, snorkeling, swimming, those kinds of things. And obviously the carbohydrate content of food can vary, and we're usually having foods maybe that sometimes, if we're going to the Mediterranean, we might be eating more salady kind of things and having less carb content, whereas if we're going to, America, we might be eating more carbs because it's the American kind of food. So just always think about that and taking that into account when you're thinking about traveling. Alcohol is also, as we kind of discussed, normally, people usually have a few extra alcoholic units whilst they're on holiday here and there. So have a think about that and how that affects you with your diabetes, and make sure you're planning for that, and people that you're with and holidaying with are understanding that how alcohol might affect you, might make you more prone to hypo. So have a think about that if you're going out and about in the afternoon. Altitude is one that we also probably don't think about. So altitude, if you're going, mountain climbing or going particularly somewhere with high, above sea level, think about that, because that can also affect your glucose levels.
It can affect the CGM as well.
Yeah, it can. So we know, like, people that have climbed, like they had trouble with their sensors not working, didn't they, when they were at the top of the mountain? Same as your
trying to get your fingers out and finger pricking at that sort of cold levels.
Not great.
Impossible.
So again, just make sure you've got your hypo treatments with you, and plan for that and have a think.
So the next slide's about travel insurance.
So you kind of talked about this, didn't you? But just always think, declare your diabetes.
There was a GHIC. I only found that out the other day, because I remember EHIC, but I didn't know there was a GHIC. And so there's a global one you can apply for now. So this is like, you get free healthcare, the sort of emergency healthcare in places. So we just have to register for a GHIC now instead of an EHIC. So I'm going to do that, because I didn't even know that was a thing.
Absolutely, it's worth having, isn't it? Make sure you've thought about how to access care abroad. So not every country, nearly every country doesn't have an NHS. So make sure you've researched a little bit about how to get care if you need it, and what potential charges and things might look like if you're going to have to pay for some care whilst you're out there. Consider apps for translation, which might be a good idea. Another good thing is taking a photograph of your insulin before you go, and any other medications that you're on, and just keeping it on your phone, so that if you do go to hospital, you can show them a picture of what you take, because quite often insulins abroad have got a different name to what we call them in the UK. So although profiles and what's the molecule and what's actually in there is the same, they actually call it something different over there. So a good example is over here, we've got Humulin I, which is a basal insulin, and everywhere else in the world they call it Humulin R. But in the UK, Humulin R is a U500 insulin. So these little slip-ups can cause problems. So just make sure that you have a picture of your insulin with the concentration on it. So it'll be usually 100 units per mil in this country. Some people might be on 200 units per mil. So just, things like that, top tips, just keep photographs and things with you, just so that you've got everything just in case you do need it. And it's also quite handy if you do just have an emergency out and about and you rock up to an A&E in the UK, because we know that people get confused about insulin.
This is good to have everything with you that you should have. So this is another reason why you need to bring lots of supplies, because quite often when we're abroad, you get sweaty, you get hot, and you go through things, especially like if you're swimming and things like that, you go through sensors and cannulas more than you would normally. So you need to make sure you've got extra supplies. And if the glucose levels are going up high for any reason, need to be checking ketones, and you can only do that if you've brought your ketone meter with you and some ketone test strips. And so make sure you have those and they're in date as well, because if they're not in date, some of the meters won't recognize the strip, and they'll say it's out of date, and it won't even let you attempt to use it if it's out of date. So do make sure that they are in date, and making sure that you've got a copy of your 6-day rules for whatever device you're using. So if you're on a standalone pump or a hybrid closed loop pump or pens, there's different 6-day advice for each of those. Knowing the signs of DKA, so high glucose mostly, depending on as long as you're not on SGLT2 inhibitor, high ketones, abdo pain, lethargy, tiredness,
Feeling sick,
dry mouth, peeing loads, feeling sick, getting drowsy, all those kinds of unwell things, which we might mistake for hangover or
a bit of jelly belly.
Food poisoning.
Yeah.
But either or, even if it's hangover or food poisoning, we still should be checking ketones to make sure we're not going into DKA.
Pregnancy. So yeah, just if you are pregnant and you're planning on traveling, just obviously to remember to also take your antenatal record, because that has all your information in there, and you might need to be more frequently monitoring than you usually would if you're traveling abroad. Just a bit of a consideration.
There's only so many weeks you can travel up until if it's flying, isn't it? So
yeah, I think so.
That's for all pregnancies, not just diabetes.
So key tips. So yeah, plan early. Don't think about ringing up the DSN the night before you're traveling away for extra medications and things like that. Double up on all of your essentials. Make sure you stay alert to your changes.
Yeah, stay alert to glucose changes, I think is what she was going to say next. Speak to your DSN way before you leave. I think she's really tried to emphasize that. She must get a lot of calls the day before the holiday asking for a holiday letter. Yeah, so make sure you've got all of your stuff and it's labeled, it's got your name on it, so that when you go through any kind of checkpoints or customs, it's you can prove that it's yours, and you've got your prescription with you or your letter with you, and know where to get help if needed. So have a look at where the local services are in the area that you're going to, if you think you might need that at some point.
Thank you so much, guys. It's been really helpful. We'll put the podcast together next day or two. It'll be available on our YouTube and on our socials and website and stuff. So please go listen back. Thank you so much. It's been really, really helpful. And hopefully people will watch back. But yeah, really helpful, and hopefully it'll help people over the next couple of months and beyond when they're traveling or going on holiday. And we've talked about different temperatures and going through the scanners and lots of different top tips. So and what I liked is, like you guys said, we're always here to help. Speak to your diabetes team, give them as much notice as you can, not a day before or a week before. Try and get there as quick as you can. If you know you're going away, give them notice, and they'll support that individual to prepare for their holiday. Because at the end of the day, we want to go on holiday, have a bit of fun and relax. We don't want to be worrying the extra things that diabetes do. I know we do naturally, but you want to try and prepare ourselves so that we don't worry as much, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cheers, guys. Thanks, Beth. Thanks, Amanda.
Thanks for having us. See you soon.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.